Hey everybody, Julie here from Mostly Caffeinated. I wanted to talk today about what to expect from your second round of home study interviews. If you are married, this would be your individual interviews where you actually are taken separately by the social worker and she talks to you personally, as opposed to the first round of interviews where she talks to you both together. I'm pretty sure I did a video about that. I'll link it here. If I didn't, I'll go back and do one again. But anyway, this was our final round of home study interviews for our foster care license. Now we are in the process of adopting from foster care, but in order to do that, you need to be licensed as a foster care provider first. So these steps we're going through are really the steps you go through to have a foster license in the state of Wisconsin, at least. I don't know if you do a private adoption how much of this applies, but if you're going to adopt from foster care or if you're just going to do foster care, this is an interview that will take place in your home. Our social worker has been here one time before, and then this was the second time. We started out actually together. She asked us all questions as a family, kind of going back over some things that we talked about the very, very first time we ever met. She talked about like race and ethnicity again, age of children again, just to confirm what we had decided to apply for. We talked about how many bedrooms we have and the theory of who we'd put where. Discussed. She did not go through and actually measure bedrooms or anything like that, which I had thought maybe she was going to do. But she didn't. She confirmed again how many children we would like to apply for at once. We had been tentative about 2 before, and this time we confirmed, yes, 2 siblings would be okay. She asked more in depth about medical and behavioral type topics about children, not just please check here, but asking why we had selected certain things or how severe or long-term we meant when we checked off that things would be acceptable. She asked us about legal risk and what we were willing to undertake as far as legal risk. That has to do with whether or not the children have terminated parental rights or not, how long they've been in the system, kind of what the odds are that they will end up returning to their birth families. That's legal risk, and how much of that we wanted to undertake, how much we wanted to gamble on whether this child would stay in our family or whether this child may return to their birth family. We talked about how open we are to keeping relationships with former caregivers or family members or siblings. And she said that she would send us some profiles to read so that we'd get used to reading the documents, the kind of information that's in the documents. Not that necessarily these children would be children that we send our home study for, but just so we get used to reading the documents. She has been sending those, and I can tell you that they're not potential placements. They're very much so just, here's some things we've recently gotten. Because many of these children don't fit some really big markers of what we thought we could handle as foster parents. So obviously she's just sending us things to read over. And then there was this really nice quote I thought of hers. She said, this is quite a process. She's like, it can be a combination of nerves and fear and excitement and worry and all these things. And she said, what I always tell my families is keep all your arms and legs inside the vehicle. She said it's a roller coaster. It's going to be wild. You might not have any clue what's coming next, but just keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle. Just hold on, and it will all shake out and be fine. And then she separated us for our individual interviews. Now, I think my husband's may vary from this a little bit. As you'll see, one of the topics we talked a lot about is very specific to me personally, but she asked us to be alone in the living room with her. So my husband took the kids outside while I did my interview, and I took the kids outside while he did his. So if you're getting ready for the second round of home study interviews, be aware you need to find something to do with yourself and your children while this is going on. She asked about our hobbies and pastimes. She was very understanding. I really love my social worker. And she says, what are your hobbies? And I was thinking, and she said, someday in 10 years when you have time to have hobbies. Like, she understood that doesn't mean I partake of my hobbies right now, but in an ideal world, what would I do with my free time? She talked about any talents that I thought I had, both in the realm of parenting and just in general as a person. My goals and aspirations long term for my life, for my eventual return to work and my career, my goals for my family and my children. She asked if I had any, trauma in my past, any grief experiences that I'd worked my way through. And I felt like these questions were going to be hard because I don't feel like I have carried a heavy burden of trauma or grief or loss in my life. A lot of my relatives have been elderly and passed away, but it wasn't a great churning thing to me. It didn't upset me on a spiritual level or anything. But I just talked about that truth. I didn't fabricate anything. I didn't make it sound sadder than it was. I just said, these are my past experiences and I don't feel traumatized by them. This is how I dealt with them. I feel like I did it in a healthy way. But, it was okay. I got through it and it was fine. And she said that was fine. She doesn't expect, everybody to have some kind of traumatizing history. She asked about my family life as a child, about how my experiences with school were, how my parents helped me with different troubles that I might have had or different challenges I may have faced as a child. And then we spent a long time talking about my own adoption. I was privately adopted as an infant back in the 80s, which is not at all the process that we're doing right now. But she wanted to discuss how I felt about my own adoption, how my parents had talked to me about my own adoption, what I thought I could bring to the table as an adoptee, adopting children. And I don't have all of these former life experiences, these placement stories, any of that. But she said that what I do have is valuable to children, and that was kind of nice to hear. She asked me to talk candidly about my spouse, about my husband. What's he good at? What do you appreciate about him? What are you two working on in your marriage and your family? What are his strong points as a father? That kind of stuff. And then she did ask briefly how my extended family feels about the adoption process. Now, I'm adopted. My sister's adopted. We've got in-laws that are adopted. People are adopted, all sprinkled through our family. So there wasn't really a situation there to discuss. But that's pretty much all we talked about. And then we switched, and my husband talked about similar things, except minus the adoption portion because he is not an adoptee. And that was about it. She left us some questionnaires to fill out, and that is our final piece of paperwork. We are mailing in our final paperwork tomorrow. And she said by the end of next week, she will be finished with her office portion of our paperwork, and our license should go through very, very shortly. So we are getting super excited here. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, leave them down below. I'd love to hear more from you about your foster or adoption process or journey or past or future. You can always check out my blog and my Facebook page for more. Anyway, I'd love to hear more from you in any of those ways. And kind of make a little sub-tribe of our mostly caffeinated tribe here. Thank you to all my subscribers for following along. Let me know anything else you'd like to hear about this experience, and I will tell you as best as I can. And I'll certainly keep you updated when our license goes through. You guys will know also. I'll see you around.